Just want to make one quick comment here as a follow-up to one of the comments about getting wide public support. And too often we go back and look at the Apollo program and say we had wide public support there. But and a lot of the people in the room here weren't around at that time. I was. And think back on the context. The context was it was World War II, and you had bad experience there. Okay. Shortly after that, early 50s, the Russians became the enemy rather than the friend. The Russians exploded H-bombs, A-bombs. Widely known. People got scared about it. Late 50s, Khrushchev got up in the UN, beat on with his shoe on the podium, said, "We will bury you." In August of 1958, it's August, not October. October was Sputnik. August was the first ICBM, which then that same missile launched Sputnik 3 months later. All those things combined for wide public knowledge. When I was growing up, we had bomb shelters. My dad didn't have one, but I had neighbors that had bomb shelters. The public was aware of this. We had air raid drills in school, every school. So all the kids, regularly, the drill would go off. You'd have to get under your desk. So there was wide public awareness, and the thing that drove the wide support for the Apollo program was fear. It wasn't the fact that we were going to get Tang out of it. It wasn't the fact that we were going to get cordless screwdrivers out of it, and all these other benefits. All the benefits are great, but until we have either some real benefits that we can quantify or some real fear. One Chinese launch in space or one Chinese space station isn't, I think, going to drive real fear that would result in the same kind of wide public support. But I mean, it's something to think about. We don't really want that kind of fear. At least I don't want that kind of fear in the world today. But I'm not sure we can come up with the wide public benefits that will ever rival the kind of public support we had in the late 50s, early 60s. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're talking about support then for the government programs versus the commercial ones where the economic stimulus is going to be.
Across the board. I mean, the technologies and the government programs. I mean, what drives wide interest in other technology? I think Apollo is not a good model for commercial space. I think we need to find commercial models.
Yeah, I'm here because I want to go.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the wide support.
Okay, our final speaker, our wrap-up speaker, is Charles Miller. Charles got a great credentials for this. He's an entrepreneur. Spent time at his own company. Spent time with a couple of nonprofits, Space Frontier Foundation and the National Space Society. And currently, he is in the Commercial Space Office at NASA headquarters. He's going to wrap this up for us.
I'm not Charles Miller. Yes, panel, please. Thank you very much.
No, not that one. That's the old one.
Which is the new one?
This one right here.
Right there.
So thank you to the AIAA. I'm pleased to be here. Lots of old friends. I'm on a different side of the fence these days. I first want to point out that NASA doesn't have an Office of Commercial Space. Had one from '87 to '92. I am Senior Advisor for Commercial Space in the Office of the Innovative Partnership Program. And let's see here, I started on February 23rd, the day before I I resigned as the CEO and president of Constellation Services International and my president of Space Policy Consulting, where many of you I met before. I would like to, so just to be clear, everything I'm saying here is vetted. There is no policy statement, okay? And if it sounds like I'm saying policy, you've misunderstood me or I've said something incorrectly. A little bit more. So what can I say that's interesting and maybe a new idea and stimulate some conversation? And this, what I'm about to share with you is rather than talk about the future, is talk about the past, about a model of innovation, and I'm in the Innovation Partnership Program, that was extremely successful. And since the Ken's word is encourage, facilitate, and promote, but the current buzzword for us is stimulate a commercial spaceflight industry. What can we do stepping into that model about what might be very useful, and also potentially do it without asking for a huge amount of money? I'm not saying that someone might give us money. I'm saying you need to get orthogonal that. What could we do that could be effective as a new model and partnering with industry? So this is what this talk is, and it's really to start a conversation. And the last slide is my email address, and I'd like to hear from you if I don't hear from you today, and if you have anything interesting, I'd encourage you to send me an email. So next slide. Oh, I got it. I'm driving. So why did we create the NACA? So Klaus had a very good introduction talking about fear. We invented the airplane in 1903, but did very little to facilitate it or stimulate and promote, encourage, facilitate, and promote, as Ken would say. And leadership went quickly to Europe. And, you know, part of it was aggressive investments in a technical lead. 10 other countries started aeronautical research laboratories before the United States did. Had a much more aggressive buying of planes from the European countries of European companies. It took, you know, they bought less than a handful from the American companies in about the first 10 years. We had and a patent fight going on between the leaders in the industry where they are fighting each other. So it took, the Wright brothers spent $1,000 to invent the airplane, and they spent over $100,000 in patent fights with Glenn Curtiss. Glenn Curtiss spent, I believe, I may have it reversed, $250,000 fighting the Wright brothers. So what happened is we got to World War I and we had a major national security crisis. And suddenly what had been ignored by the Congress is starting an American aeronautical laboratory suddenly got put through in a rider for $10,000 on a Navy appropriations bill in March of 1915. And we were already so far behind. The Wright company was building British designed and French designed fighters in Dayton. And that's what we were building. We were so far behind, we'd be blown out of the sky very quickly. So NACA's mission was in part to stimulate an industry capability. And I'm going from a NASA history here, written by Alex Rowland on the history of the NACA, and quote him, "The members of the NACA believe Toy Man," this is nearly 100 years ago, "that the future of aviation in the United States depended on a healthy and prosperous aircraft manufacturing industry, and it was their duty to help where it could." So they were only limited by fairness and impartiality. Okay, it was they considered it that was their job to a man. So some early history, and I want to this chart here is says Gary Olson down there. Gary's in the audience. He crib from one of his speeches at the Space Frontier Foundation Conference in 2005. They basically brought together a diverse set of federal agencies